Hello and welcome to InFocus Recouched. How far would you go for something you were really passionate about? To another country maybe? Well, how about 20 countries?
Wow.
On a walk of maybe 15,500 kilometres? Yeah, we're going to meet a man who did that today.
Wow. Also in today's program, we'll take a look at what ordinary people can do about massive social problems like child slavery. And we'll get to the bottom of what's going on with those fancy Himalayan and Celtic salts. Are they really better for you?
Oh, wow, yeah. Well, first up though, let's take a really long walk.
Well, it's great to welcome Sam Clear to the set. Sam did something very interesting a few years ago. He walked from the easternmost part of Brazil all the way to the westernmost point of Spain with a few things in between. Why did you do it, Sam?
Well, it started off, I'd studied mechanical engineering and then worked in youth ministry for a number of years and became very aware of the disunity of the church.
Right.
I was sitting in on meetings where people had gathered together from different denominations, but at one time they found out that I was a Catholic. They asked me to leave. They said, sorry,
you're out of here.
Yeah, Christians only. You shouldn't be here. I mean, the Adventists hadn't even been invited because they weren't proper Christians. Another time, the Baptists and the Pentecostals were fine with me being there. In fact, they were looking to me for support as they threw their Bibles across the table at each other, accusing each other of not being proper Christians. There were a lot of mission projects going unfunded, and yet they were pumping a lot of money, a lot of these churches pumping money into products against one another, into books or seminars, flying speakers out to say why we are great and we're going to heaven and all these other churches aren't, why they're wrong. There's very little dialogue happening. But then what happened was I started to meet people who had lost friends and family. People who had joined a particular church and their parents had refused to ever speak to them again.
Oh, for goodness sake, they're shunned.
Yeah, very much. And it was in that, it started to feel like, you know, we talk about the church being the body of Christ, and it started to look like the church, we'd crucified Christ again.
Right, sort of a balkanized church.
Yeah, and so I guess it was in the despair of, what do I do? I studied mechanical engineering and AFL. I didn't ever study theology or philosophy. I grew up in Tasmania, so we play AFL down there. But I didn't feel like I had anything to offer. But I had a very big sporting background, and I was looking at a world map one day and thought, how brilliant would it be to sell everything that I own, do it like a protest walk around the world on foot, praying for unity. But stop in every single church I pass along the way, regardless of the name on the front, and invite them to pray for unity. So very simple in that context, but ended up walking 15,500 kilometres on foot across 20 countries. That wasn't particularly easy.
Well, I noticed that you brought some boots here. Are these the actual, or
this is the first pair of boots that I walked with. So these carried me from Brazil to Nicaragua.
Wow!
And they're
tough boots to wear all the way through. Like this is serious hiking.
They're very thick to start with.
I got to tell you, they smell like they've been about 1,000 kilometres.
They're not that bad. They're not that bad. That's not true.
So you're traveling through South America, and you end up in Central America. It's not the safest neighborhood, frankly. There's all the drug cartels, there's also the guerrillas, the FARC, and other agencies. How did you survive?
By the grace of God. Yeah, I think I nearly lost my life 11 times.
Wow.
I was held at gunpoint 3 times, once with a rifle, once with a shotgun, once with a semi-automatic. Held at knife point by 4 men, stripped clean of everything that I owned. Was beaten up a few times, got a few scars across my hands from a fight in Russia, where I literally ended up with a Russian in both hands. I had them both around the throat, just trying to hold them off as they tried to beat me up.
They didn't know that they were like taking on a guy who played Australian rules football.
They didn't, no. But the funny thing is, a lot of them didn't know they were taking on someone who was walking around the world praying for unity. And a lot of them were very apologetic. Mind you, they were then in jail, and I got to meet a few of them in jail. But they're generally apologetic, and they said to be praying for unity as well.
So you come up through Central America. You take there's a part of Colombia that you don't go through, which is almost inaccessible. Then you wind up in Mexico.
Yes.
Which is notorious for the amount of violence that's in Mexico.
Absolutely. But I came up with a plan.
Okay.
And that was, I needed some way to, one, curb the verbal abuse.
Right.
Every single day was just filled with verbal abuse, really violent verbal abuse.
You're kidding me.
And then sometimes it escalated into a gun or a knife or a beating or people throwing rocks at me.
Right.
And so I went and bought a soccer shirt of it's kind of the lower socioeconomic team.
Right.
It's the team that the farmers follow.
Okay.
Guadalajara Chivas,
Okay.
a red and white striped T-shirt. But I think the very first day that I was wearing it, there were 3 or 4 men standing on a veranda. They saw me walking past and went, "Hey, gringo!" And I turned to them expecting the worst, and they all went, "Guadalajara!"
You found a way to
I found a way.
talk.
Yeah, the universal language, soccer.
And you get over to Russia, you take the train across to Moscow,
Yes.
you keep walking. During this whole time, how did you feel that your walk for unity, how did you feel that was resonating with people, and was it getting attention? Was it accomplishing what you hoped to accomplish?
Look, it actually gained a lot of attention in some countries, but through the United States, through Canada, Poland, Slovakia, there's a lot of media coverage, Costa Rica as well. So the media would come out onto the road, and some of them TV programs came to their show on the road with me while I was walking, and radio stations in the United States giving hourly updates of where I was at.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So in some places it really did generate some publicity. And
I want to ask you about unity, because I think one of the things that I think of, and probably many of our viewers, is we all want Christian unity, but I suppose all of us want Christian unity in the way that we want the church to be unified.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But how do you have some semblance of unity without going to the lowest common denominator?
Yeah, there was a great example of it in Casper, Wyoming. When I arrived there, met a few people in the churches, and what they did, every single church in Casper met together, I think it was once a month, once every 2 months. They'd pick a topic first though, and they'd pick something very divisive. They'd pick something, should we go to church on Saturday or Sunday?
Right.
And then they'd all prepare something, and they'd all have 5 minutes, each of them, to give some sort of preaching, if you will, or to share where their church stands on it. Then they'd debate it back and forwards. Then they'd pray together. Then they'd put on the table the mission projects that they could bring all their churches together to work on. And so what was happening very slowly, well, you might actually say in the grand scheme of the history of the churches, maybe pretty quickly, was that they were beginning to understand each other a lot more. They were finding that there weren't as big a differences as they first thought. On some of the differences where no, we do differ on those, they were at least coming to some sort of understanding of where the churches were coming from. A greater appreciation for one another, but what wasn't being lost was the love of one another because of who we are brothers with, to a point, being Christ as the head there. So that was probably the best example that I saw of how to fulfill. It's not going to be easy. I don't think it's. Do not push the difficulties aside. Embrace them, but then work towards love.
After doing this really monumental trip, you've met so many people, you've talked to so many people in the church. You come back here, it's World Youth Day. You're part of that whole thing. But as you look forward, what is the one thing that you'd like to leave with our viewers of what you would hope? What's your vision? What's your dream for Christianity writ large? I
think if you put a definition, unity, I think there's truth and there's love, and one without the other, it's like having a body of skeleton without flesh on it. If you've got truth without the love put on it. If you put an Australian definition on unity and love, so we give a stuff about each other. We actively get involved in each other's lives. We seek to bring Christ to one another. I don't think we'll ever achieve unity in this lifetime.
Like theological unity.
Yeah, but to continue, at least have that desire to stretch ourselves even further in love, to allow God to use us even more powerfully by, I guess, humbling ourselves even more, and at least open those doors up to unity.
Well, thanks so much, Sam. Amazing story. To get more about your story, we have your website up there. Folks can just go there to the website and see more about Sam's amazing walk.
Man, that is just, I don't know, wow. Like, how many times did he say he was, like, attacked or threatened with knives or guns?
Yeah, I know. Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a kind of a Catholic thing, I guess, to go on a long walk, a pilgrimage, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's also a very Jesus thing to do. Remember, he walked around for 3 years.
Yeah, true. I didn't think of that. Time for an ad break now. Stay with us. We'll be back soon.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope. Visit hopeoffer.com/step beyond or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
We're going to start with some soybeans. Use some chickpeas, an onion, you have a teaspoon of salt, slice some tomatoes, slice some cucumber, some red onion just to give it a bit of freshness. So just make little falafels like this. They just smell amazing. Let's make our tahini dressing. Let's get in some tomatoes, cucumbers, some falafels. Drizzle some of this lovely dressing. All you need to do is roll it up and you've got a delicious lunch for your family.
Hi, welcome back. Now, Ken, are you into those gourmet salts? You know, the pink Himalayan and all those other kind of salts?
Kind of. I don't like spending ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah.
But I do prefer something that seems natural.
Yeah.
Like maybe sea salt or rock salt or something like that. I don't really like the sound of, anti-caking agent, when you're reading the ingredients. But honestly, I don't even know what it is.
Well, let's see what the experts have to say about it.
We're talking about salt today, James, because salt has been now linked with more than 20 medical conditions.
20?
Absolutely. But the biggest one that we're really concerned about is high blood pressure, because the more salt or sodium that you consume, the higher your blood pressure and the higher your risk of stroke.
Boy, and stroke is one of the most terrible
things.
things.
Well, it is, because the whole cardiovascular disease group, that means heart attack, stroke, heart failure, they actually cause more deaths and more morbidity than things like cancer or AIDS or even famine.
When you say that salt is linked with high blood pressure, I've always heard that you have to have salt in order to live.
Yes. Well, we do need a little salt, but it's not as much as people think. So just to give you an example of how much you might need for the entire day.
Right.
For the entire day, and this is all your salt, including what comes hidden in foods, it's about a level teaspoon, if I can get it out. Okay. Here we go. This is what you need for the entire day.
Okay.
But most people eat 3 times, 4 times as much.
Well, I never add salt on my table. I don't have table salt, so no problem, right?
That's what most people think. In fact, I can't remember when somebody came to our clinic with high blood pressure, somebody saying to me, oh yes, I eat lots of salt. Everyone tells me they don't eat salt because they don't add it to their food.
Right.
But James, that only accounts for about 15% of an average person's total salt intake.
Right.
75% is to be found hidden in processed foods.
Okay, so let's just take this. I've got some very healthy bread. It's wholemeal. It's organic. It's got rye in it.
So if you're looking for salt, you should actually be looking for something called sodium, which is the bad part of salt. Okay. And you look at the amount of sodium per 100 grams.
Okay.
So it'll tell you the milligrams of sodium per 100 grams.
And this is what, 530?
530.
Okay, so that doesn't sound like much.
It doesn't sound like much, but if you already have high blood pressure, if you're overweight, if you have type 2 diabetes, basically, if you're over 50, they're now saying we should all be cutting back on salt, and you should be trying to get products that are closer to 120 milligrams per 100 grams. So that's like 5 times the amount.
But we can't just cut bread out. I mean, what's that?
There are alternatives. So probably the best thing to do would be to make your own bread if you're so inclined. You can throw in all kinds of goodies, seeds and nuts and so on. But you can buy a few breads. Health food stores, for example, may sell a low sodium or salt-free bread, and that's one example of a wholemeal organic salt-free bread that would be perfect for somebody with high blood pressure.
And this has under 10 milligrams per...
Yeah. So many of these very common staple foods, breads, breakfast cereals, even biscuits, you'd never expect salt to hide in biscuits, but many biscuits are loaded with sodium. So it's really the hidden aspect that we're really concerned about, because people don't know that they're getting it.
Now, what about, you got also nuts over here. I love nuts.
Well, They're to show you, James, how easy it is to swap to make a really good choice. So you can buy salted nuts or you can buy unsalted nuts. The difference will be somewhere between 680 milligrams and 6 milligrams.
Wow.
So it's a huge saving. You're saving more than 99% of the sodium just by making simple switches. Whether it's nuts, whether it's baked beans, you can buy no added salt baked beans.
Sure.
Again, you're saving over 99% of the sodium by switching. Tomato sauce, there are many products you can easily switch to get the lower salt alternative.
If we cut down, will our food taste any good?
Absolutely. And it's really important to cut down because, for example, if you're an older person, it can significantly drop your risk of heart attack or stroke.
Right.
If you've got kids, studies show that if you halve their sodium intake, their blood pressure drops immediately, and you're actually reducing their risk of developing blood pressure as they get older. But there are lots and lots of other lovely things you can eat. Unprocessed fresh foods are the best because they naturally have very low sodium levels. If you are going to use anything in a packet, in a can, in a box, then look for products which have as close as possible to 120 milligrams of sodium or less. Okay. You'll be doing yourself a lot of good.
Well, thanks so much, Sue. Now, if people want to get more information and get recipes and that kind of thing, can they go to your website?
Absolutely. Lots of free recipe ideas, lots of food and nutrition information, and they can even get free monthly food and nutrition tips.
So salt is just pretty much salt.
That's right. And I hope you're not one of those people that just start adding salt to their meal before they've even tasted. Are you?
No, I've seen it.
Good, because that is just an insult to the chef, I reckon.
Insult, I like it. No, not me. For me, it's sugar. That's my poison. Preferably mixed with cinnamon and sprinkled on hot donuts.
Oh, yum. Don't even go there. Let's take a break now. More InFocus Recouched coming up straight after the break.
Father, I can't connect the dots through the little that I understand. What words can I say to reach you? How can I know that you are there, listening, hearing, caring? My words are broken, weak, and powerless. But I know your power is limitless. What can I say?
So you think you've got your future all planned out, right? Or maybe you're not sure yet what you want to do, who you want to be, but whatever path you choose to study, a great education matters. Because it doesn't just help you get a great job, it helps you prepare for what life can throw at you and live a great life. Avondale, it's education designed for life.
Hi. One of the things that's been really awesome about InFocus is that it's given us the opportunity to highlight the incredible work of charity organisations, including International Children's Care, which is profiled in this next interview.
Let's take a look.
For many of us, our children are the most precious parts of our lives, to be protected, defended and nurtured. But there are children who, for reasons of poverty, sickness, addiction or neglect, do not receive this protection. Instead, they're abused, they are orphaned, enslaved, starved and abandoned, but not forgotten. Christian charities and various other agencies are working hard in all parts of the world for the safety and welfare of vulnerable children. And here with me in the studio is David Corkill from International Children's Care Australia. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
Good to have you with us. Now, there are millions of kids around the world that are in very difficult situations, and the problem is huge. Is it possible to make a difference?
Absolutely. In fact, James, there is 12 million children that are enslaved today, this day. More than half of those are girls, and most of those are in child prostitution, one or another form of bonded labour, and the most extreme forms of slavery. It is possible to make a difference, and if I can just share with you just a really small story that shows the impact of life change from a child that was abandoned to a child now that has had a life transformation experience in life. There was one child that we have that came to our children's village in Cambodia quite a number of years ago. He was found abandoned by a fisherman who was out doing his fishing business on the lake, and he went over in his boat to some noises that, you know, coming from these dogs that were making a big hullabaloo on the side of the riverbank, and there, right in front of him, was a baby wrapped up in plastic. These dogs were just about to eat this poor little child. Just a child abandoned just like that. You know, this child now is a strapping young, healthy young man, and living out his life in the image of God. You know, it's hard to, you know, it's hard to put in words when you see such a life transformation. This poor little child at just a few months old, weighing the same as a newborn baby that had just been abandoned. That loss and that tragedy is played out in the lives of so many children, day after day after day, and it is possible to make a difference. I suppose. Are you doing it one life at a time, or are you trying to fix the whole world? We're a small charity, you know, we're trying to do what we can, and you know, those children are testimony to the good things that we're able to do. Now,
you mentioned the charity, International Children's Care Australia.
Yes.
What is it specifically that you're doing, and whereabouts in the world are you working at the moment?
Okay. We run interventions and programs that reduce the incidence of children becoming abandoned in the first place, and also for those that have suffered the loss of abandonment, we'll help them with a program even to the point of taking them to our children's villages for safety reasons and a place that they can be nurtured, and provide a holistic program for these kids to live in a safe and loving environment with people that really care for them, with Christian parents that act as a foster parent that will bring hope and opportunities to those children. Some of the interventions might be microcredit bank branches where destitute and impoverished families can get a small loan for as little as $80 or $100, and that will help them to generate enough of an income that they can support their own children, which again reduces the incidence of those children becoming abandoned. Another intervention could be in the medical area. We know we do work in different parts of the world where a medical intervention where we can bring good health to people is going to reduce again the incidence of abandonment. And then we have children that come to us that have been rescued from one form of slavery or another as well. And for those children, often they don't have any living relatives, or they don't have a relative that is a safe place where they can stay, and we'll take those children to one of our centres and give them provision. And we just love kids that much, and we want to explore every opportunity and possibility that we can look after these children.
Fantastic. Now, for you as an individual, you've been doing this for a while. You could be doing anything with your life. Why specifically this? Why have you chosen to go into this field and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, good question, James. Firstly, I must say that I'm driven by a particular sense of justice, and there is one Bible verse that particularly resonates with me, and it's found in the first chapter of Isaiah, and it talks about doing good and to look after the orphan and the widow, and also to reprove the oppressor and to seek justice. And to me, it's a matter of justice. I struggle with issues around the injustices in the world today. I mean, we have more people enslaved in the world today. Somewhere close to 24 million was the last stats I read from UNICEF. Wow. More than there was back in the days of William Wilberforce and the so-called legitimate slave trade. It's these terrible inequalities and I suppose the variances between the haves and the have-nots. These are social issues that play in my mind. I see the work that I can do with International Children's Care Australia as an extension of my own Christian ethos, and the ability to be able to link people here at home who are our donors and our sponsors to projects that we're doing to help people in poverty, to give realistic and tangible, hopeful poverty alleviation programs.
Wow. Now, David, I understand that you've been doing some work in the Philippines of late, and I just wanted you to share with us a little bit more about what's been happening there at the moment.
We run many programs in the Philippines, but one that is really exciting is on a little island called Siquijor, south of Cebu. It's a very idyllic, tropical place, but there's some desperate poverty there. The poorest kids you can imagine. And we're putting in place a whole holistic package that raises the whole community out of poverty with microcredit loan opportunities, education, food programs, nutrition programs, and also education. They put in time and energy into growing a communal veggie garden, which helps to feed the different destitute families. But they put the labour, it's like a sweat equity program. Labour in, food out. Some of these ladies, they're growing in in plastic bags. They don't have any garden beds, so they've got plastic bags filling with soil and growing their vegetables in that. It's just a really exciting kind of organic look at raising the whole health and well-being and poverty of a community.
Your spirituality has definitely informed and undergirded everything you do. But you did mention there what others can do in support of your work. In particular, just for our viewers who are watching at the moment who may resonate with what you're saying and really want to be involved in some way or help in some way, what is it they can do? How can they contribute?
Something as small as signing up for an angel rescue fund. It's $17 a month. It's a few cents. It's not a lot of money per day. There's sponsor a child for $40 a month. We have many projects for many different people's finances and passions. So if you have a particular passion in one area, we'll have a project that would match it, where we can bring poverty alleviations to children. And in countries such as Thailand and Cambodia and the Philippines and Sri Lanka, and you know, there's plenty of scope there for people that want to do something, and even join up and do a short-term mission trip, a vision tour for 1 or 2 weeks, and go and see some of the projects and be involved in some way to see and to feel and to nurture the feeling that some people really miss inside, that they want to go and do something. You know, actually, we can help that as well.
Well, that's fantastic. We want also to ask our viewers to be in prayer for your work as well. And hopefully we'll inspire some of these people out there, young people that might want to do something similar to yours and make a difference.
Thank you.
Wow, I think you'd have to be a particular kind of person to do that work.
Definitely.
I don't know if I could deal with it emotionally, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking stuff, isn't it? But I guess it would make you feel better knowing you were actually doing something about it.
Yeah, that's true, offering hope.
Yeah.
Well, we might not have walked thousands of k's today or even been to Cambodia, but we've been on a journey of discovery, haven't we? Thanks so much for your company on InFocus Recouched this week, and all the best for the week ahead.
Don't forget that this week's episode and all the InFocus videos are at our website for you to enjoy all over again. The address is record.net.au.
Yeah, check it out. We'll see you next time. Until then, God bless.
As scholars studied these ancient scrolls, they discovered that about half of them were handwritten copies of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. They also knew from the handwriting style that many of the documents had been written more than 100 years before the birth of Christ. For generations, scholars had argued about the Bible's reliability. In all that hand copying, had errors crept in? Had mistakes been made? And had the Bible stories become more fanciful? Well, scholars now had 2,000-year-old copies for comparison.
To receive a free DVD of the documentary Beyond Belief, visit hopeoffer.com/belief or call 1300 300 389.